So today I thought I'd talk about Conan. Last month was the 50th anniversary of Conan #1. That was the Marvel comic that was produced from starting from the 70s, 1970 until I think the mid 90s. Marvel had that license, and I think they lost it in 2004 and went to Dark Horse, and they got it back again about a couple of years ago. And they've been producing these really fantastic omnibuses. Right now, there's six altogether: three of the original comic and three of the black and white magazine, which has more mature content. I thought I would read the Conan because I've never read the run before, and I'd read that for since it's the anniversary. But let me give you a little history on my first, the first time I ever saw a Conan comic, and that was this comic right here, Marvel Treasury edition #4, which is a great book. So this book has a great reprint of Red Nails and Rogue in the House. Now these books, again, they're reprinted, and the Red Nails story originally appeared in the black and white magazine, Savage Tales 2 and 3, and the Rogue in the House story that appeared in Conan #11. Now for this edition, they recolored the Rogue in the House, and they colored on Red Nails for the very first time. And this is how I was introduced to Conan. I was, in the store, saw this on the shelf, and I mean, this cover right here, this amazing Barry Windsor Smith artwork just called to me. I'd never seen anything like it. It's just magnificent. And on the back here, it has a full version of it, which is just glorious, just amazing. And again, I read these stories, and they're really quite beautiful. So on the Red Nails version, this appeared in Savage Tales 2 and 3, and this also was fully inked by Barry Windsor Smith, and it just was just an amazing book. And this is probably the only Conan I had when I was growing up. Again, I didn't see another Conan book until, well, I didn't really see Conan until the movie came out in 1982. But I always was impressed with Barry Windsor Smith artwork. I even tried to copy some of the pages that was in that book. And I always wished I had a collection of the Barry Windsor stuff. So, years go by, and like I said, Dark Horse had got the rights to Conan. I think it was 2004 or something, and they started reprinting the Marvel stuff in these softcover editions, Chronicles of Conan. But they did reprint two editions, hardcovers of just the Barry Windsor stuff. And I thought, that's great. I can get these Conan stuff, enjoy those stories like I've never read them before. And I picked them up, and to be honest, they were a disappointment. And the reason they were so disappointing was Dark Horse, for some reason, recolored all those issues. I mean, they did it in the Chronicle of Conan's trades, but also for these hardcovers. They recolored them, and I was greatly disappointed with that print. Some of the issues of the original Conan comic, Barry Windsor Smith actually did the color guides, and they didn't even look to those color guides when they reprinted them. And it was so disappointed. To be honest with you, I couldn't even pick them up and read them. I looked at the version of Red Nails they had in there, and it was so drastically different from the Treasury edition I loved as a kid, and I just put them away. I still have them. I guess they're a nice oddity to keep. But a couple years ago, like I said, Marvel got the rights to Conan back, and they kind of started releasing these really impressive hardcover omnibuses. This is the first volume right here, and as you can see, it's Conan the Barbarian, and it's the title of these the original Marvel years. And this one has issues 1 through 25, no 26, 1 through 26, and so it has all the Barry Windsor comics, but also they included their Barry Windsor black and white stuff. So if you really wanted to have a volume that encompassed all of Barry Windsor Smith Conan stuff, or at least most of it, this would do it right here. And again, the whole point of this video is that I decided for the 50th anniversary that I would actually read the Conan comics. And I did. I read this volume, and I just like to give you a couple of my thoughts. So, as you know, Barry Windsor Smith was the one. I'm missing Roy Thomas. Roy Thomas, the writer of these volumes, such an innovative process of taking these old Conan stories and adapting them for the comics, and also coming up with some original stories at the time as well, and doing that. I think he was the writer of Conan for 10 years, and they're really fun books. Sword and sorcery stories, really high adventure, great fun. Again, with the Barry Windsor artwork, that's just amazing stuff. But again, rereading this stuff is just fun tales that you can go through and just enjoy. Their adventure romps, that high, sword and sorcery, lots of sword fighting. I really enjoyed them more than I thought I would. I mean, when you read the first issue, you go, oh, it's okay, it's great. The Barry Windsor artwork is very simplistic in the first issue, more reminiscent of the stuff he did in Avengers and X-Men, where he was kind of parodying Jack Kirby at the time, or a little Stradenko as well. But as he went through the series, he really found his voice. He improved as an artist. That's another reason I really like this. You can start and see the very beginnings of Barry Windsor Smith's artwork, and through his first 24 issues, you can see him grow as an artist. And just at the end, the book ends. His run ends with issue 24, which is the Song of Red Sonja, and he penciled that, he inked that, he colored it, and it is a masterpiece. And to see that progression from that first issue to his last issue, and just wow, it's just amazing. So again, the first issue was nothing to write home about, and I probably didn't find a story that really wowed me until like issue 3, an adaptation of a story that Robert E. Howard wrote, Grim Gray God, and it wasn't even a Conan story when he wrote it, and I like that. It had some really good moments in it. It was a nice adventure tale. It ended kind of on a sad note. I liked it a lot, and I started to see how Roy Thomas and Barry Windsor Smith was finding their voice as they got along. And then the next issue after that, Tower of the Elephant, which is, I guess, a classic Conan story, that was really kind of fun as well. And then he goes through the issues, and then the next one I really liked was Conan number 9, was Garden of Fear, which was an adaptation of a story, but it had this winged adversary in it. This Jenna, who had been introduced previously, was a Conan companion. She was kidnapped, and this winged creature brought her to this tower. But what was crazy was this tower was surrounded by these flowers all around it, and they were just these white flowers. But the winged creature dropped a captured person into it, and basically, I guess the flowers kind of ate him, and then they transformed into this bed of red. It was quite, it was like really kind of neat how they had done that. And again, it was a nice little adventure story, but that one little detail added to it. And again, this character Jenna was Conan's companion, who we saw in another issue, but was great was that he used her as in the rogue in the house. She betrayed Conan and got him captured by the city guards, and that was a great way of taking that character and evolving it just a little bit. And Rogue in the House is a great story, has these great visuals of this gigantic ape who trying to emulate the priest that I guess raised them and wears these priestly robes, and it's really quite striking. The visual, especially this battle it has with the black leopard, it's really a great visual feast for the eyes, because this gigantic ape is just terrifying on the reveal scene. And then in issues 14 and 15 is a crossover story with Michael Moorcock's character Elric. Elric was a character invented by Michael Moorcock during the 60s, which was a kind of a new age sword and sorcery story. And Michael Moorcock also invented created a multiverse for this character that saw him reincarnated in different incarnations. And this was a meeting between, I guess, old classic sword and sorcery and a new age sword and sorcery. And I enjoyed that because I had read the books on Elric, and I thought it was neat. I guess at the time a lot of people didn't, but because I had read the books, I enjoyed it. And then again, we go through, and there was a fill-in story, 2-issue fill-in story where Gil Kane had done the artwork. It was really not the greatest story, and I didn't think Gil Kane really suited. I love Gil Kane's superhero stuff, but I don't think he was suited for the Conan books. And I know he does a classic storyline later on that may change my mind, but this was a very dull story. I didn't like it at all, and I we can just skip these. But then there was a introduction of one of the first real multi-part stories. Basically, this War of the Living Terram. It was a 6-issue storyline that ran through Conan 19 through 26. 22 was a reprint issue, and there was a continuing story about this two warring lands and trying to hold on to this living embodiment of a god. And one city had kidnapped the god, and this other city was trying to was fighting a war to get the god back. And it was a multi-part storyline that introduced these new characters. Also, one character that would be a big antagonist against Conan. And what was really different from this multi-part story versus modern multi-part stories is each issue really had an ending onto itself. So you could actually read this portion of a story and come away feeling that you have read a complete story. Unlike today's multi-issue storylines where they always land on a cliffhanger and you don't know what's going to happen, and it's right in the middle of a scene, so that makes you go back and buy the next issue. This here, each issue kind of ended. It was a larger storyline, but each issue had a self-contained story in itself, which I really enjoyed, and thought it was really interesting how Roy Thomas could write these single issues that were structured like that, but had them involved in an overlong arc of that 6-issue storyline. It was really kind of impressive how they put it together. Now, again, I said that this goes from issue 19 to 26, and we know that Barry Windsor Smith left the book at issue 24. So in issue 25, John Buscema took on the art chores for the book, which, plus and minuses. I really love Barry Windsor Smith artwork. His style is so impressive, and his composition frame is so detailed. And that's the difference, is detailed, whereas John Buscema, I think, is more of body dynamic and action. Also, John Buscema also leans more to the heroic figures versus, again, Barry Windsor Smith is about scenery. But the one advantage John Buscema has over Barry Windsor Smith is John Buscema draws Conan like Frank Frazetta used to paint the Conan covers for the paperbacks during the 1970s. During the 1970s, they reprinted a lot of Conan books and also re-released some new Conan stories in paperback format from, I believe it was Del Rey, and Frank Frazetta painted the covers for these, and they were beautiful covers. But the framing size of Conan was quite different from the way that Barry Windsor Smith drew Conan, but John Buscema draws Conan like Frank Frazetta painted him. That kind of stocky, bulky frame versus a more slender frame that Barry Windsor Smith did. So John Buscema, finished out the run of that story, and I enjoyed it, but I did see, a dramatic drop in that art style because again, Barry Windsor Smith work is so detailed, and John Buscema just doesn't do that. Again, still enjoyable. Still enjoyed the conclusion of that story, and it makes me want to read more. And I do have the other omnibuses, and I am going to continue. The way I plan on reading these now is I'm going to read them in chronological order, including the black and white magazine, meaning that if there's a May issue of the color comic and a May issue of the black and white magazine, I'm going to read those as like they were coming out at the same time. One last thing I want to talk about is the omnibus itself. Now, again, we talked about the issues. I already talked about how much I enjoyed the issues, but the omnibus itself, this is just an amazing book, and I'll tell you a lot of the features that are in it. First of all, it has a new introduction by Roy Thomas, and it also has all the introductions that Roy Thomas did for the Chronicles of Conan for Dark Horse. So you have that as a bonus along with the new introduction, and there were some reprint issues of Conan in the 1990s, and they have all the introductions that Roy Thomas did for those as well. Also, it has all the ads for the Conan books that appeared at this time, and it has some comparison between the black and white magazine and the color reprints, because yes, they did reprint the one story, Daughter of the Frost Giant, which was in, I believe, issue 9, was originally in the first issue of Savage Tales #1, and they do a comparison to show you the difference between the code approved version of it in the color comic and the non-code approved in the black and white magazine, and what they had to make changes so they could print it in the color book. And again, lots of extra details. And finally, one of the things that I've actually been reading in this as well as I go along is the letter pages. The letter pages are included in this book, and it gives you a little glimpse into how the book was being received by the public at the time. Nowadays we have all the forums that people post to, and they let their opinions known. Back in the day, it was just the letter pages, and you can read the letters. So when I read these books, I read the comic, and then I read the letter pages. And again, it's so funny because you see a lot of people that are hypercritical about Barry Windsor Smith artwork. People who actually didn't like the artwork. And again, the first few issues are a little rough. Oh, and I forgot, in this book, they also include an issue of Chamber of Darkness. I believe it's #4. And the reason why they include that is that was an anthology horror book. And Roy Thomas and Barry Windsor Smith worked on an issue together where there's a sword and sorcery character that's kills his author because the author was going to kill the character off. But the character, the sword and sorcery character, Star, I believe with 2 R's, looks very much almost identical to the design that they used for Conan for the first few issues, a horned helmet and an amulet around its neck, almost to the T, the design, and they included it in this book. Again, lots and lots of extras in these omnibuses. I believe that the omnibus editor is Corey Saddlemeyer, and I have to tell you, if you ever see an omnibus that has his name on it, get it, because he is probably the best editor for these omnibuses because he always makes sure to include lots and lots of extra stuff. So highly recommend the omnibuses, and the stories are great in them. I didn't want to give too much away, so I just kind of touched on them, but please, I mean, again, it's 50th anniversary of Conan. This is the first time I've read it. Highly enjoyed it, and I recommend it highly. If you like this video, hit that like button and subscribe, and you'll be notified anytime that I post a new one, which isn't that often. Thanks so much for watching. I appreciate it.